share my screen and record. Are you recording, Melissa? Okay. Awesome. Sheila, you're our only attendee right now, so you get all the attention. Aren't you excited?
Can you tell my mother that I actually showed up somewhere on time?
It's good. I mean, you know that like the first like 3 minutes are an intro anyways. So like honestly, most people I feel like watch the presentation after the fact anyways, so they can fast forward, which is what I do. So I try to like let people do their own thing. Like that's fine. I get it. I'm going to present. All right. Smartsheet best practices hosted by Echo Consulting, rules of engagement. We love questions. Please don't hesitate to unmute yourself, engage, ask questions throughout the webinar. It's totally fine. If you feel more comfortable, there's definitely a chat function you can do. We will be sending out this deck afterwards, so don't worry too much about taking notes. We'll have both the video as well as the presentation available. My name is Molly Yanus. I'm the founder of Echo Consulting. We offer project management services. Here's a couple of examples of the services we offer. We definitely do a lot of project management system implementations and optimizations and a lot of workflows and dashboards and all that other good stuff, along with some other fun stuff like strategic planning. Today, we're going to do a really quick overview of the Smartsheet, just basics, some of the language you should be aware of. We're also going to do like get into Smartsheet, do some demos, do some tips and tricks, how to save you time as you look to implement Smartsheet. So I don't know that we got a ton of results in our survey in terms of who's a new Smartsheet user versus, transitioning from the other project management system. But don't hesitate to reach out. If you have something we don't cover, we will have time for questions at the end, or you're happy to, grab time in my calendar if you have a specific Smartsheet question. All right, so there are hundreds, and I do mean hundreds of project management systems. And really what it comes down to, in my opinion, for project management systems is a lot about the team culture and what you're looking for. So Smartsheet is what I call a mid-level project management information system. They are certainly making a bid. They literally just announced a new enterprise option yesterday, but they're really what I call a mid-market solution. So I would say that their competitors are Monday.com, Asana, definitely Basecamp, probably heard, a lot of these other options. If you're looking for like what I call a more like SMB, so smaller team option, it's very board heavy. Some of the players in those space that are well known are Trello. ClickUp's an up and comer that we really like working with, Teamwork. And then if you're thinking about more enterprise, oftentimes heavier on the tech side, Microsoft Project is one of the longest standing ones, definitely has probably the most configuration options. Reich, as well as Jira, Atlassian Suite are kind of more the enterprise. And then there are really enterprise solutions, work order, some of the more portfolio management heavy spaces. So today we're going to be talking about Smartsheet, but just to ground you, if you're interested and you have a different system than I mentioned, Capterra is where I typically start to get an idea of comparing multiple different project planning solutions. There's a lot out there. I'm going to skip the survey results because we don't have a ton of people quite yet. So great design is not just about the solution, it's the elimination of the problem. So as we talk about Smartsheet today, what we want to do is just understand what problems they're trying to solve. So they're a platform. They say that they're for enterprise achievement. I'll say that I'm a partner of Smartsheet. I really think that they've nailed the mid-market and they're moving into the enterprise space, especially with marketing and their integration with Jira. They have really powerful core capabilities. So they have a lot of pre-built templates, which they call solutions. So you don't have to start from scratch. We'll show you where to look at the template center. Never start a project management system from scratch. Look at what they already have, tweak from there, get ideas. They have a lot of add-on products and services as well. If you're looking for like a key capability, so they have a lot of add-on space. So like a roadmap, the integration with Jira, for example, they have Control Center, which is more a portfolio management system. So what we're looking for is, bringing the right tools together in the right order for the team. And I like to take that, classic approach, crawl, walk, run, focus on, one problem first, and then really Smartsheet has the flexibility to add on and to give your end users a lot of leeway in terms of building their own solutions. So once you kind of get that core solution in place, you identify those core data points that you need to standardize, you can give them a lot of leeway to build their own solutions, which is really exciting. And they can do that without breaking existing solutions. So that's another piece. So don't want to spend too much time on slides. Smartsheet Basics. What you're looking for with Smartsheet is they have Workspace. So that's like it's their folder structure for how they keep similar tools and reports and sheets together. They have a sheet, which is basically their project plan or task list. They have reports, which pull information from sheets. So you're only looking at a subset of information, and you can pull information across multiple sheets. They have dashboards. Solutions are their set of templates. Views is a specific view of data like within a sheet. So whether it's filtered, for example. They have automation, which is their workflow capability. And then they have sheet summary, which are summary metadata that can be tracked in a sheet. So we'll walk through all of these, but that's some of the terminology that you want to be aware of. They definitely have a hierarchy of solutions. They do predecessors and dependencies, some of those core project management information system capabilities. Any questions on Smartsheet Basics? So with any project management system, you have the concept of data in columns. So with Smartsheet specifically, they have columns that allow you to configure that include drop-down, single select, drop-down, checkboxes. They do have auto numbering systems and symbols and things like that. So the most important thing to think about is when you start configuring your solution with Smartsheet, it's really important that when you create the columns, that they are the same column type across every sheet or report you do. We're going to show you why. But when you're looking to consolidate multiple data sources into one, the column type has to be the same. So if I set up in one project plan, for example, the drop down is a single select, and I set down in a second drop down is a multi-select, those two columns will not roll up into the same data set. They will roll up as separate columns. So one of the biggest things that I see that people bring us in on with Smartsheet is they're like, oh my gosh, like we started this, we thought we were all doing the same one, they're the same name, but it's not coming all together. It's really important that the column type is the same, not just the column name. There is a primary column. The primary column is the one that allows you to have the hierarchy and indent tasks, and we'll show you what that looks like before. All righty. They have date columns. Some of the core views that Smartsheet has, they do have a card view or a board view if you're coming from a system that has that. They have their grid view, their task view. They have Gantt. They just added the ability to baseline. It's not as complex as if you're coming from a system like Project or some of the enterprise solutions that have multi-baseline capabilities. Smartsheet has a single baseline. They do have a calendar view. So these are their kind of 4 core views. Either the grid looks more like a project plan from Microsoft Project, more of a Trello card view, as well as the Gantt and the calendar view. This is what I was saying in terms of the rows hierarchy. You can tab in and that allows things to auto calculate up. So it becomes a child. And what's nice about Smartsheet is if you're familiar with Excel, we get the best adoption of Smartsheet from teams or executives, especially that are used to pulling data out of a system and bringing it into Excel so that they can run their own pivot tables and calculations. So this hierarchy is something that's really helpful that kind of, makes the project management system versus Excel important. But again, the experience of the formulas and things like that, the ability to calculate based on child and parent is very similar to Excel formulas. Okay. For automated workflow, it depends on your familiarity. You can use Smartsheet without workflows. I mean, I love workflows. I love enabling. So I work with a lot of different teams where I really like to make the project managers, project owners, marketing managers, whoever is kind of the core user, be able to build their own workflows. I think that it's really what takes, step up. It's a low code, no code solution. And it honestly, after like 1 to 2 hours of training, I've seen project managers and program managers really do a lot with their own automated workflows. So there's this concept of a trigger. So what causes the workflow to kick off? There's a condition. So condition in terms of which rows, which information to look at to make sure that the action should happen. What action should be done, as well as what the condition is. So if we think about, we'll get into this, but it depends. It's very similar to a lot of workflows. I do a lot with workflows in Power Automate with Microsoft, but some of the other task management systems as well. We'll build a workflow together, and I'll give you a couple of tips on this. There's 2 new pieces of functionality if you're already a Smartsheet user that they've added, which is the ability to assign a task based on a set of criteria. So you can start kind of assigning to different people in a workflow, which is really great. And then the other one is record a date. So if I think about a project moving through toll gates or through the life cycle, and you move between phases or you hit a milestone, being able to record that date. So it's a kind of a proactive baselining tool. Alrighty. I'm almost on my slides. So they do have the ability to do forms. So intake forms, if you're adding a new project or a new marketing request, they have some great form capabilities. They do have conditional logic. So based on a selection by the person filling out the form, additional fields can show up or hide or be locked and things like that. So we'll walk through how to create a form. So this is the hierarchy of, a typical Smartsheet setup for an individual project or setup. So there's a request form for new work. There's a tracker sheet, or I call it an intake sheet, that includes all of the different requests. And there's some sort of workflow typically associated with that, either for review or approval, how to get to the next step. The tracker sheet oftentimes becomes a bit of a portfolio summary as well, like a way to roll up information at a project or request level instead of the task level information. From this sheet with all of the different requests, you can run a report. So if you had, for example, marketing requests coming in for both like a global and a regional, or you have a project request coming in both from an IT and marketing and HR and finance projects, you'd be able to do a report that shows only finance projects. And maybe you're only showing a subset of the columns of information. So maybe only 5 columns the finance team or the finance exec wants to see. You can also start to pull metrics. So when you're talking metrics, you're very much looking very similar functionality to, Excel or Google Sheets. You can run formulas based on this to do some counts. And that allows you to roll everything up into a dashboard, right? So you can start providing some metrics and some graphics, as well as the list of information, so that you really have your sponsors and your decision makers only looking at the dashboard. They're not going to ever look at a sheet or even like a card view necessarily. Any questions on kind of that high level structure? Okay. We'll skip over this for now. If you're not new to Smartsheet and you've been using it for a while and you're attending today just to get some kind of quick heads up on new functionality that you might want to consider for your solution, they do have a new home screen that has an experience to kind of drive you to what changes have been made to documents that you have previously looked at or sheets that you previously looked at. It's going to start doing some more personalized call outs and notifications as well there. We do have multi-select checkboxes on forms now, which is great. And then there's some grouping and functionality, which has streamlined some of the metrics calculations. And then there's a new automated action that I mentioned, which is, to change a cell, sort of lock it or something like that based on another piece of functionality. And we'll show that. Smartsheet is fantastic about providing release notes, and they have great functionality within the Smartsheet environment to call out new functionality as you're doing it. I mentioned this earlier. So if you're looking at multiple different task management systems right now and you're on today because you're thinking, is Smartsheet the right hit for me? Where I typically recommend people go is to look at someplace like Capterra, like another system that's comparing multiples. And what's great about Capterra is that they also include user reviews based on ease of use, user experience, support, and things like that. So that's where I like to start. So Smartsheet starts at about $14 per month per user. They have really good documentation and community, articulating like what a free user is versus a licensed user and what licensed users can do. They're really they're taking it up a notch. One of the things I say about Smartsheets, it's my favorite thing, is I call them Googleable. So in other words, if I have a question, it's very easy for me to Google it and find an environment in their community with an answer. We offer basic Smartsheet implementation packages at Echo Consulting. And if you like this webinar, there's more events coming up, but let's get to the juice of it and let's actually go into Smartsheet. You guys don't need to see that. Going to go into Smartsheet. Alrighty, everyone. So if I go to my Smartsheet Home, this is their new home page that you're looking at. If I have any requests, so if someone's looking for me to review something or approve something, or they're looking to be added to one of the sheets that I own, I'll see the requests right here. I'm all up to date. Suggested for you are things that are recently opened or something that might have updated that is owned by me. I have the ability to immediately create something. Creating is going to bring you to what's called the Solution Center. And these are the templates that I'm talking about. So if you're going to do the free trial of Smartsheet, if you're not in there yet, or even if you already are using Smartsheet, but you're considering using it but for a new department or in a new way, I typically recommend starting from the template sets to get some ideas. Depending on the template set, so like if I look at, so here's a great example. I'm working with one client right now that's going to be starting to use Smartsheet instead of Jira for some of their ticketing requests for non-technical users. And so I don't want to start from scratch on something like that. Like I want to look to see what options they have for a ticket or for support, right? So I can look to say, oh, okay, they've got an issue tracker, they've got a help desk issue tracker template. See, this is a template. This is going to be a single document or a single sheet. Template set is going to actually require have multiples associated with it. So I can come here. If I look at the template set, Smartsheet does a pretty good job too about providing information and about how to set up the template set, how to configure it, and things like that. Of course, that didn't open it up well. But anyways, so you can create new from here. You can see the different templates here. If I look at a template set, like a project management office is one, it'll show you what templates are included in this. So it'll start with like a dashboard and what the reports are and things like that. If you click on learn more, it'll actually show you pictures of the individual ones. I don't know why I can't bring this up right now. So I'm gonna stop myself from doing the same thing and expecting a different result. But templates are one thing you want to start from. So the other piece that I would say, so this is kind of my homepage. Where I actually typically start from is either my notifications or I start from my recently edited sheets. Okay. I can also favorite different pieces that I'm working on. So like if I favorited project tracking, I'll see that I have some different template sets that I had already brought in here. So let me go ahead here. If I'm navigating, I can click create, and here you can see the different pieces that I mentioned. So I can create a new workspace, I can create folder structure, or I can actually create a project. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to create a project. Okay. open it up. It's going to look very similar to, baselines. So this is what I was talking about with Smartsheets. So one of the things I love about them is when they have a new piece of functionality, which they just added baselines about 2 weeks ago, they actually call it out as you're going. And they'll star things as well to show you new functionality that they've added recently. So like this assign people functionality, it's new. They tell you it's new and they give you the help right there. So it helps you explore the new functionality. Sometimes the SaaS products, they add new functionality, but they don't add anything. They'll send you a notification about it, but it's not in the system. So I never end up looking at it. But here's a project. This is the baseline template that they give you. You'll see that there's a bolded column over here. This is your primary column. This is really important. Your primary column, you can't change which column is primary. This is the primary column. I can change the name of the column if I want to say, I'll call this primary. But this is the only primary column. And this is what I mean by primary column is that this is the column that allows for indent underneath it. So this is the only column that'll do that. Aside from that, pretty basic project plan. It's easy to add a column. Think very similar to Excel. So I can insert a column to the left or right. If I insert a column, I'm automatically told, okay, which type of column do I want? I wanted to show you the symbols column so you get this idea, but here are the different symbols. So if you wanted to use decisions or statuses or things like that, you've got some options here. You can add milestones and flags this way as well. You can rename columns easy enough to do milestone. Okay. A couple of things to be aware of here. For your project settings, you've got them over here. That's where you can set up your dependencies, your timeline display, and whether or not you use resource management. Smartsheet has a basic resource management that does allow for capacity planning. They have a more enterprise solution with their purchase of 10,000 feet, which actually has a more time tracking oriented option that provides a lot better visibility for forecasted resources versus committed resources. But you do have some basic resource management capabilities with out of the box Smartsheet. When you first come into a project, it's going to take you to the Gantt view. But the other core views we talked about, you do have a card view as well. And you can check, you can change the lanes here. So if you're more familiar with like a Kanban solution, you can definitely set that up here. You do have some capabilities in terms of your views and the card settings. So you can choose, for example, which information shows up on each card. You can show whether or not you want specific like the symbol visuals to show up as well. One thing I want to show with Smartsheet, which is interesting, which is you can actually filter by what they call level. So if you think about a parent-child hierarchy, you could, for example, only show the top 2 levels where you're really showing just the phases, for example, or just the high-level deliverables. So you do have this concept of levels here. Any questions on the board view? So same information, depends on how you want to look at it. So oftentimes as a project manager, I would start with a grid view. That's the way I prefer to add and subtract tasks. But when I'm going into my team and looking at like a weekly review and how things have moved, or maybe I'm doing a daily stand-up, I would go to the board view and I would filter a board view that makes sense for what that team is looking at. Okay. I don't like the calendar view, but for some people that are looking at only their tasks, they really do like it. It's basically like Outlook, very similar. So if you're familiar with that. Okay. A couple of things to orient you. So I'm going to go back to the grid view. Over on the right, you have some important icons. So the first thing is the ability to have conversations. So I can select a specific cell or a specific row. And I can have a conversation and mention people back and forth. So at Melissa, so very similar here. So at Melissa, and I can specifically ask her about a row or a sheet of information. And then I can look at different conversations that are happening at a row level, a sheet level, or all. Attachments you can attach at a given row. So if you're thinking about like an intake process for like a new marketing request or a new project request, oftentimes attachments come in through there. Maybe it's before you've set up a document repository for that initiative or project. It's nice that Smartsheet kind of has a good bridge solution. For smaller teams, they often can use document management directly in Smartsheet, but for larger teams and larger organizations, typically it just acts as a bridge during that initial intake process, and then they set up a different document repository for documents ongoing. Some of the new functionality in the Smartsheet roadmap that it's coming out is very focused on the marketing side of things. So they've added some new proofing functionality for images and things like that for some of their approval features. So that's that. Update requests. So if you're looking as a project manager or as a manager or as an executive leader and you're looking for information about a specific project or a specific task or deliverable, you can actually send out a request from Smartsheet. So a lot of times I'm setting up update requests automatically through automation, but if I'm looking for like a one-off ad hoc request, I can send it right from Smartsheet. What's cool about that is that it sends a form that they can actually enter information directly from there. So if you have an executive that's probably not going to spend time in Smartsheet, but you're looking for the answer to something, they can do that here. When you send an update request, you can select who you're sending it to. You can CC yourself. You can include which columns from the sheet that you're sending the update request in the actual email itself, and you can decide whether you want to deliver it now or you want to deliver it at some point in the future. This functionality is very similar to, again, Outlook. They kept it pretty basic. If you're familiar with the Microsoft stack or even the G stack, the Google stack, you're going to be pretty comfortable with Smartsheet very quickly. So the ability to publish any information. So even if you're not an actually share, you can't edit to it, but being able to publish a version of it so that non-users, especially this works really great with people that are maybe outside your organization where you don't want to give them access, but you wanted them to be able to see what it looks like. You've got the publish functionality. This is the activity log, so I can see what columns have been changed, who's been in it, who's viewed it. So as a manager, especially when I'm looking to implement Smartsheet and I want to kind of see where we are with adoption, I oftentimes look and be like, oh, have they viewed it? Have they been in it recently? When was the last time they looked at it? So I can do that. They've given you quite a bit of functionality here in terms of looking at what's been happening on a given sheet. So you can really narrow it down as well. What's also nice is like to see if there's been any automations that have run. Summary sheet, we talked a little bit about this. Smartsheet hasn't done a lot with this. When this functionality came out, I was using it for another client about a year ago. I was really excited about this. So I could add in, for example, the project manager for a specific project. And I love the fact that I could manage data that's at a project level versus the task level somewhere else. And you still can do this. And what you can do then is you can pull reports that only look at sheet summary data. But since then, aside from being able to, manage information, the other place I might use this with is like overall health. So if you were tracking the overall health of something, I might want to track it at a project level or maybe a risk level or something like that. Maybe you want to do overall health. This allows the project manager or anyone to track it at a sheet level instead of like at a task level. And then I can pull in a report from that. Don't worry about 10,000 feet integration unless you're really interested in time management. Sharing capabilities. You can, the four basic types of permissions are admin, editor can share, editor cannot share, and viewer. There's also a fifth one, which is owner. So there can only be a single owner of a sheet. The admin can do pretty much everything the same as the owner, but if you're tracking by owner here. You can edit what the default view is at a sheet information, and you can send the information via email, or you can just copy the link if you wanted to send it from here. So if I wanted to send this to Kelly, I can add a message, I can CC myself, I can decide to notify her or not notify her. and I can share. One other piece here is I can share at a sheet or I can share at a workspace. This is a really important tip. Ideally, you want to be managing permissions for your teams of information at a workspace level versus a specific sheet level. Oftentimes with my teams, I will provide them, for example, viewing access at a workspace level, but if they have a specific sheet or report that they need to edit, then I will give them additional access on that one. But ideally, you want to set up your permissioning to share at a workspace level. If you are an admin, you are able to set up groups. So rather than sending like a specific invite to Kelly, I could say send a sharing request for all project managers or all business analysts or all QA people, for example. Taking a breath. Any questions so far? Gonna go through a bunch right now. So that is the right hand. The left hand navigation, I mentioned already, home, notifications. So if I have any requests for an update, browse. This is the different workspaces that I have available to me. The workspaces are, across multiple users. Sheets is where my personal location. So this is where I would start when I create something, but maybe I don't want to share it yet. Once I've created it, I feel comfortable with it. What I would do is I can just drag and drop it into a workspace. And then, so like if I wanted to do an example, a test data user sheet. So I want to go ahead and add that to, I don't know, add it to Echo, I guess. Then I've moved this new sheet or report into this workspace, and the people that are in that workspace are now going to be shared with it. So Sheets kind of is my personal demo playground environment, right? So far, all we've done is we've created a project. If you look at a grid or a task list project cards, they're all basically the same type. It's just what you're starting from. The other pieces that you can build are reports and dashboards. So let's start with a report. I'm going to do a new blank report. That's fine. And with the blank report, to build a report, first thing I need to do is choose what sources, like what information I want to report on. So what's really cool about Smartsheet is I can bring in multiple different sheets, multiple different data sources. I can do it at a sheet level, or I can even pull in information from a workspace level. So I will basically bring in all of this. So if I just picked Echo, for example, there's 3 sheets in Echo. I select Echo and I'm pulling in all of the information that is under Echo. Does that make sense? So you can actually look at like the data source report via workspace. The reason that's really cool is from a portfolio management side of things. Maybe new projects come in and out. Maybe there's a new folder for a project and your report wants to show all of the projects that are in that space. You want to say that the report pulls from the workspace rather than a specific project. Otherwise, every time you add a project, you have to add that to the data source. Okay, so important tip, if you're looking to roll up multiple different data sources, put them in the same workspace, and then actually pull the report from the workspace. Okay, I'll probably do this from here just because we'll do the new house one, I guess. So once I've selected my sheets, the next thing I want to do is I want to pull in what columns. So I don't have to pull in all of the columns. I can pull in a set of the columns. So here we go, vendor. So now I'm only pulling in a subset of the information that's from my sheet. Then I can go ahead and filter the information. Maybe I only want to see buy sell side that contains that is one of. So this is another piece. So when you're doing the filters, you want to do is one of if it is a drop down. So I'm saying, I only want to look at the buy versions for the tasks. So I'm going to apply this filter. It's going to only show the information here. I can drag and drop the columns to be in whatever order I want. I can hide columns. You'll notice that the primary column shows up here. Sheet name is when you're pulling in multiple different sheets. This is super helpful because I can actually click on it. I'm going to save this first. But if I click on that, it's going to take me back to the actual source sheet. Am I going too fast, Melissa? Does that make sense to everyone? Yep. Okay. So I'm creating a new blank report. So I've selected my source of information. I've selected which columns I want to show up in the information. I've filtered those columns down to only look at the rows I'm interested in. Next thing I can do is group. So maybe I want to group by the vendor. So I'm going to click a group by vendor, sort ascending. So now all my tasks are grouped by a vendor. And then the other functionality is summarizing. So I want to summarize the vendor and I want to do a count of how many there are within each of the vendor categories. So I'll see that, okay, so I've got vendor, there's total 14 rows. Of that, 3 are inspector, 6 are lender, and 5 are realtor. So you start doing some basic metrics based on grouping and summaries. For groups, you can have 2 levels of groups. So I could group by another one. So I could group by is there anything good here to group by? Maybe finish date. My data set's not great, but you can kind of see, similar to like Excel, like how it kind of starts becoming like a pivot or something like that. My second group doesn't look great, but you do have the ability to group by multiple, and then you have the ability to either open it as collapsed or expanded, right? So I can have this here. And then you have the ability to sort as well. Any questions on a very basic report? Okay. So let's get into automations, and then we'll do we'll go ahead and do a dashboard as well. If we have time, I want to leave 10 minutes for questions. So I'm going to go this time to file. Any sheet that I have open, I can click here and I can create new. One piece of information, again, a good tip that I always want to mention is if you have a report and you have the columns that you want in the order that you want and you've sized them the way that you like, rather than do that again and have to fill out all this information, what I do is I save as new. I save as new. I'm doing copy of blank report. I'm saving it. And then what I can do, what did I do? File, save as new. Yep, that's fine. Save. Then I can start from here and say, you know what, instead of grouping by vendor, I don't want to group by vendor. I want to group by approval status instead. So now I have a different report. I actually don't have approval status information here, but now I have a different. The reason this can be really useful is one of the groups that I love is by sheet name. So if I have multiple sheets that I'm pulling from, I sort by the sheet. So if I have like multiple project plans or something like that, it makes it super easy to like only look at milestones for each project here. So again, basic reporting capabilities. What I love about this is that we set up a template set, but that project managers, program managers, everyone can create their own reports based on what information they want to see and what order they want to see it in. They'll only have the ability to pull from reports for sheets that they actually have access to too. So it has a built-in permissioning set. So let's go back. Let's go to my recently viewed. I'll go to, I think I want to go to housing just because I think that there's at least data there. I do have search capability, so I'm going to go here. New house. So here's a basic project plan that I've created. You'll see statuses, you know, predecessors, etc. I'm going to create an automation. When I create an automation, it's basically like creating a workflow. These are the different popular workflows that are out of the box. If you are using Slack or Microsoft Teams, be aware that you can send notifications to Slack or Microsoft Teams from Smartsheet. So if you want to have the notification show up there versus Smartsheet or emails, like that's a capability here. Setting up an approval workflow is probably like one of the most basic ones that we do. Setting a reminder or alerting someone if something new comes in is another one. But we'll set up an approval workflow for today. The other one is request and update. So these are the two that I use most often when I'm first setting up a new Smartsheet scenario for people. So let's request an update just so we can see it. So I'm going to name it example workflow. First thing I need to do is pick a trigger. So my trigger options are when a specific date is reached, when rows are added or changed, when a row is changed, or when a row is added. Okay. So I'll do when a row is added or changed. Then I'm going to select what field I want based on this. So like, let's say the status changes and I want it to change to, for example, in progress. I can have multiple changes as well, and those multiple changes can be either or and scenarios. So, or duration changes to any value, for example. Okay. I can run my workflow when it was triggered, or I can choose to send a workflow that notifies people like on a daily or weekly basis that summarizes the information. So if you want to see all of the new projects that came in or all the new requests that came in on a weekly basis and send that to your executive like leader, you'd probably want to send weekly and they would just get a list of the information. Whereas if you want to know as soon as something comes in, you can do when triggered. So adding conditions. So I want to say I only want this triggered on something that is event is for a lender. If this condition is not met, you have the ability to add additional capabilities. So you say, okay, if this happens and this is met, then this is what's going to happen. If this condition is not met and there's a different one, like let's say maybe it's not the lender, it's the realtor instead, we're going to alert someone and then you can choose who to alert. So I'm going to alert. One of the things I want to mention, so like you can alert again to Teams or Slack. I like to alert to a specific contact cell. So like vendor is a contact cell. So I'm going to say, okay, if it's not a lender, then alert the vendor that this is happening instead. My workflow is a little bit confusing, but a lot of capabilities here. Doesn't require a developer to do this. Smartsheet has about an hour-long training on setting up workflows, and typically I recommend starting from a workflow that they're familiar with and training on them. So I really think it's about 2 hours to get a new person like up to date on how you could set up a workflow for yourself. So one thing to mention is that you can customize the message. It tells you right here, but you are able to pull information in from the sheet and include it in the message. So like I can put, for example, task name, and that is going to pull in the task name from my, or let's say we'll do vendor because I know that's a one. This will actually pull in the vendor name in the message that I'm sending. So if you want to have like in your face, either in the subject line or in the email about data that comes from the sheet, you can put it here. The other piece is that you can include all of the fields in your sheet, or you can say, you know what, I only want specific fields to show up in my email. I can select specific fields. So I'm gonna save this. So I'm gonna, in this case, just update myself so you guys can see the email that a workflow would send. So now I have a workflow. It's telling me when rows are added or changed and the status changes to in progress, or when duration changes, they're going to alert someone. They're going to request an update from Molly. Okay. So that's one workflow. If I ever wanted to edit it, I oftentimes do. I can come here. I can also disable it temporarily, or I can duplicate it. I'm also ability to unsubscribe. So if someone set up a workflow that's contacting you and you don't want to be contacted anymore in the workflow, but you also don't want to disable it for other people, you can come here and unsubscribe to the workflow. I'm going to X out and let's do a change, right? So like, let's change something to in progress. It's going to notify me. And then the other one is let's change the duration here. So this one already was in progress. Oops. What did I do here? Oh, I see. So this is a that's weird. Okay, so I'm going to save this and I'll tell you when the email pops up and do this here. Okay. But that's the basic workflow. The other piece that I want to mention is forms. So if I want someone to be able to add new tasks in here, for example, I can set up a form. The form's going to allow me to pull in information from the columns that are already in the sheet, allow me to pull this in. I can drag and drop where I want things in what order. I can say, you know what, I don't actually want them to be able to add comments at the time, just dragging and dropping it back over here. I can say, you know what, you can do a file upload. I can add a divider, etc. Maybe if they select a vendor, I want to add conditional logic. I can add conditional logic over here to say, if the vendor is a lawyer, then I want them to show the duration field. But if they're not, I don't want them to. So when the vendor is a lawyer, show duration. If the vendor is not a lawyer, duration is not going to show up. Okay. You could add additional rules here. So when vendor is a lender, then I want start to show up. So you can add as many rules as you want. For settings, there's just some, different ways to look at it. You can require people to log in or not. You can allow them to get a copy of their submission. You can decide whether you want the submission to come on the top or the bottom. Lots of information like that. You can open the forms. You can see what the form looks like. Right, you'll notice that duration, for example, is not on here right now, but I think it was lawyer. If I add lawyer, duration shows up. Okay, drag and drop files, pretty basic. Any questions on forms? All right, I don't want you guys to see like the nastiness that is my inbox right now, but I do want you to be able to see. Oh, you know what? We can do it via notifications actually. Hold on. So see how over here, this came up with an update request. So you see the little thing. So the update request was sent to, oh, this is the old one. Hold up. Automation, manage workflow, when rows are added or changed and status changes to in progress or when duration changes, alert someone and request an update. All right, so it's taking a minute there. All right, last thing I want to do is I want to show you the dashboard capabilities. So I'm going to create new and I'm going to create a dashboard. I'm going to create a new dashboard. When I create a dashboard, I'm adding widgets to the dashboard. So I can add a metric, a chart. I can add a shortcut, which is a link or a report. So I'll add a report. I'm going to add a report that's going to let me come here. We'll do new house demo past due tasks. Here's my report. Within this, I can edit this to say, you know what, I actually don't want the Gantt view to show. So let's hide the Gantt. I can remove formatting if I want, or I can collapse grouped information. I can change the title. So maybe I just wanted to say past due tasks instead. When a widget is clicked on, you can choose to go to the underlying report, or you can just say, you know what, don't let it be clickable. So there's some additional information. I can go over here. I can create a metric. So I want to add data from a data source. Let's go to house in this case. I'm just going to add this metric. So the way to add that is here. You can adjust this information. You can have a title or not title, pieces of information like that. I don't think I have a good one where I can add charts, but let me see. So let's see if I have a good, I should have set up a better list of information. Yeah, I don't have a good one right now. Let's go to an existing chart and find that. But let's see if we can do it here. So all right, well, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but yeah, I need to come up with better data here, but let me show you an example of a metrics chart that save. Let me show you an existing. Oh, you can't leave with a So let me show project metrics one I was working on for another client. So let's do the metrics dashboard. I've got 10 minutes left. So this is an example of a metrics dashboard that I was showing. So if I click here and I click edit for the data, You'll see that I'm pulling it from a metrics piece. I have a lot of different chart type options. So line, smooth line, step line, bar, stacked bar information. So like if I wanted to do it via stacked bar, and I can change the horizontal and vertical axis. So very similar to functionality in Excel. If you're used to that same concept, you can have widget behavior based on this. Right. All righty. I just talked a lot. I went through the basics of what different types of resources you have in Smartsheets. So you can create sheets, you can create sheets, you can create reports, you can create dashboards, you can create workflows, you can create reports and filters and things like that. Start from a project set if you are starting from scratch. The one thing we didn't get to is looking at resourcing views based on capacity, but this is like a basic understanding of, okay, Molly is working on these 2 projects. What's her capacity? This is red. What am I going to do about it? I can go into the individual project and see what specific tasks Molly is working on and adjust it accordingly. All right, I'm going to pause, take a breath. What questions, or is there anything specific anyone was hoping to look at or has a question about Smartsheet capabilities on?
I hate to ask because it wasn't part of it, but how easy is it to integrate with Jira?
Very easy. You need the API key and the Jira integration, Jira API key.
URL.
It's pretty basic. It took us about half an hour to set it up with one of my other enterprise clients. And then it allows you, to go back and forth. So you have the link to the Jira issue item in Smartsheet, so you can go back and forth. So you can start pulling that together and pulling it for metrics and things like that.
So you can edit Jira tickets in Smartsheets and it syncs back to Jira?
Yeah, either or.
Yeah, I haven't. Okay, I had to do more reading about that.
Yep.
But I'd need an administrator's help to get that set up, my Jira administrator.
Yeah, but the other piece is that it's actually like an add-on. You don't have the Jira integration without paying for it. So you need to, I don't know if they do a free, I'd have to check with my partner rep whether they do a free, I don't think they do a free trial for that, Sheila, because usually, I'm going to be honest, usually Smartsheet will sell services for you to set up the integration and to train you on the integration.
Okay.
They'll usually try to do that.
All right.
It's pretty easy. And you can then do all the reporting and things like that with it. I've got 2 clients right now that are using the Jira integration because their tech teams are in Jira, but their non-tech teams are in Smartsheet.
Yeah, it was just a pipe dream, I think. What I'm doing is I'm taking a Microsoft project plan and dumping it into Smartsheet, trying to export it and see what I can do with it there. That's like the level I'm at right now. So I wanted to see what other things I could do. The dashboards would be really cool. The reports would be really cool. So thank you for that.
Reports for cross-project tracking is awesome. So I'm setting up a PMO basically for a large client right now. And they have 4 different portfolios. They've got 79 active projects. And it's really cool because what we're able to do is we're able to roll up under the programs and under the portfolios, but we're starting to be able to look across functions. So we can instead say, okay, all the projects that have finance resources on them, because finance doesn't care what portfolio it is in or what program, they care who are my resources committed to, like what projects are my resources committed to. So the reporting capabilities are pretty impressive with Smartsheet.
Excellent. Thanks.
No problem. Navi, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. Totally understand. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Always happy to share. If you're familiar with project, Sheila, it's just Smartsheet's a lot more user friendly for project managers that haven't had to use Smartsheet for the last project for the last 20 years.
Great.
I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. And for executives, they love it because the ability to do formulas is like the same way as in Excel. So it's very easy for them to adopt. Oh, I want this information. Like, here's this report. I can then do it. And so one other piece I would just mention is it's easy to export, send as an attachment, or export into Excel for people that are comfortable with it. Or you can export into Project, but you can export into a PDF that can be easily shared on PowerPoint as well.
Even just the capability of sharing, the ability to share it, that people don't have to have licenses, that I can share it as just view, that for the project that I'm on is huge.
Yep.
So I'm trying to transition that.
And the ability to add outside. So a couple of the larger clients I'm working with, they don't allow external users into their SharePoint environment, or they have some sort of, but because SharePoint, because Smartsheet is a SaaS application, they have different rules associated with it. So I'm able to get external users to be able to view Smartsheet information. And so for document collaboration where I can't have them where I want them,
exactly.
Smartsheet has a really good workaround for that. So that's, I mean, again, depends on the size of organization and what your security structure is, but like Smartsheet has saved me a couple of times with external vendors.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining.
Thanks, Molly.
And have a wonderful day. The one other, just because I'm here, really quick tweak. So what I just did, this is important. I use search a lot. So like I just search for metrics, right? And here are all the different references to metrics. So you'll see that it'll, highlight, okay, so these are the sheets that have metrics in the name, but maybe I'm looking at, actually specific terms like within a task, right? So I come here and I want to know where this is. I can come up to File and look at Properties. One, it'll allow me the sheet link. It has the sheet ID. It also tells me where the location is. Like, oh, metrics is showing up under metrics examples, which is in my sheets. That's why no one else is able to see it, because I haven't shared it with everyone yet. So I can go to kind of the underlying data source. I didn't find this for a little while. I would search, because that's the easiest way for me to navigate, is just search, because I knew what I was looking for, or I would go to recently, but I couldn't actually say like how to navigate to it. And that's how you figure out where that is. If I just opened up my folder structure, it's not showing me where I was just at. It's showing me all the workspaces. I think that's a defect, but that's how their current functionality works. So if you want to know where metrics is, you go to File and you go to Properties, and you can grab the link to share it with someone, or you can click on where the information is stored. So this is stored in metrics examples. Okay. All right.
Well, thanks, Molly. Thanks very much.
Everyone.
You too. Enjoy.
Bye.